Buenos dias. Welcome, everyone. I hope you are hanging in there, staying positive, and focusing on what you can control. Thank you for joining us. I hope you have your cafecito ready to go. And I am introducing our new coffee mug, Cafecito con Ace, which will be sent to all of our guests and soon available for others who want one, and for all of those. Made by my very own sister, Susana Mota, for a plug for her out there. Those of you who I haven't had a chance to meet, my name is Patricia Mota, currently serving as president and CEO for HACE, which is our mission is to positively impact the workplace and cultivating the pipeline of Latino talents across the country, providing them the insight, access, and professional development to be successful in their careers. And if you haven't seen yet, we are also partaking in our end of year fundraising campaign, which the goal is to award grants to college students that have been impacted by the COVID pandemic. We are the first round is $2,500 grants to college students. We also opened up the application, so we have nearly 150 college students that have applied, and so we're going to need your help. If you find it, if you have $5, $10, anything helps. We've met a little over 10,000 of our 25,000 goals, so please, any contribution supports that. And today's guest, we're featuring one of our ACE partners with Eli Lilly, Roberto Carballido, and he's a diversity talent scout at Eli Lilly. And one of our greatest partners as well. And I asked him to join us today. Bienvenido, Roberto.
Muchas gracias, Patricia. Thank you very much for inviting me today to participate in this podcast. I'm super excited to be here. And I'm glad that this year is over, but it has brought us a lot of learnings. And I think 2021 is going to be an amazing year. I mean, we learned so much. I learned so much this year.
I totally agree with that statement, Roberto. I think everybody's ready for 2020 to kind of be behind us and start looking into the next year. And so we usually ask all of our guests before we jump in and have a couple questions for you. How do you like your cafecito prepared?
I'm from Mexico, and I love Nescafe. I mean, don't judge me. I have it here. I like to have it. It's just regular coffee, like a super strong, and I dilute it with milk. It's half and half, and I will have 2 cups in the morning at 5 a.m. every single day with no coffee. I mean, if I don't have coffee, I cannot work. And yeah, I love coffee. That's how I drink it.
At 5 a.m., you're very specific in terms of what time you have your 2 cups. And you mentioned that you needed 2 because you have little ones at home, right? So
yes, I have 3 little girls and they keep me busy. And yes, I could not work without coffee. I love coffee.
Thank you for sharing. And Roberto, so tell us a little bit more. I think we've been partnering with you going on 3 years. And when I first got to know you, I learned a little bit more about your cultural background and your professional background. Can you share with our audience tuning in a little bit more about you?
Yes, I'm an immigrant to the US. I moved into the US back in 2007, almost 14 years ago. I came to this country as many immigrants, very dreaming about the U.S. American dream. And when I moved here, I didn't have, a lot of experience in the workplace. I literally come from with no savings, no friends, no English. I think that was the most challenging part of my immigration into the U.S., not having the language. But since I was like a little kid, I was very committed with the community. And once I moved to the US, I kind of worked so many odd jobs, but I think what really helped me was the technology piece that I have on my kind of my skill set, and the language was not a barrier for me. I kind of brought solutions with technology, and with my background in education in HR, I kind of start to build my reputation and hard work. I mean, I'm not saying that it was easy, but I mean, I work in so many different industries in the technology HR space, and I love it. And of course, now I work at Lilly as a diversity talent scout, and that has enabled me also to specialize in something that I'm very passionate about, is to bring access to these opportunities for Latino talent, because it's not that there's no Latino talent outside. There's a lot of talent, but sometimes the access is not there, or the information is not there, and I want to make sure that they have those opportunities. And I'm
And you and Lily, you guys are doing some unique things when it comes specifically to targeting the Latinx community, and so I look forward to hearing more about that. But remind me, Roberto, where did you immigrate for? Because Lily's headquartered in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Oh yes, I'm from Mexico originally, from Oaxaca, Mexico, south
Ah,
part of
okay, Oaxaca.
Mexico. I'm from Oaxaca. Yes, I love Oaxaca. I miss the food and family, of course. Yeah, I'm based now in
And we have
Indianapolis.
several friends from Oaxaca. I know some of my
Oh,
colleagues
awesome.
tuning in, right there. So please share your love with Roberto because I know because we're getting comments here as well. And then we'll get to some of your questions as well. So feel free to get your questions ready to go as well.
Oh, sorry, I missed I lost the audio, but I'm back. Sorry, can you repeat the answer? Sorry, the question, Patricia?
Yeah, no, we were just asking. So you came from Oaxaca, you go to
Mhm.
Indianapolis, Indiana. Was that your first where you came to from, where you lived when you
Yes,
immigrated directly? Because it's a completely different, right? We also have much colder weather up in Indiana, right?
yes, it's totally different. I mean, but I loved snow for like about 5 years. When I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, the winter is coming and it is fabulous. Now, of course, I mean, I'm getting older and it's a little bit different. But yeah, no, I think Indiana has a lot to offer. I mean, there's not a lot of Latinos. I mean, we have 7.1%, but I
Mhm.
mean, year to year, I have seen an increase in the Latino presence. Latino professionals. We're having a lot of Latino professionals coming into the state. And the city of Indianapolis has a very diverse demographic. I mean, we have very good mix of people from all over the place.
Yeah, wonderful. And I thank you for sharing that. One of the things I did want to talk about today, and given that the holidays are coming up, and we know that there's folks that have been either furloughed, laid off, or are looking for a next opportunity in their careers. And so I was getting a lot of questions in terms of like, what do you do during the holidays? Like, are recruiters slowing down? Are these employers like, should I still keep applying? And so I wanted to ask you from your perspective, what tips do you have for job seekers that are currently looking for employment during this time, during the holiday season into, I would say, January?
Yes, I mean, we will think that recruitment goes down during this season, but it, there's a high demand for specialized talent and skilled labor. I
Mm-hmm.
would recommend you to kind of like you may have the prime time by application by applying right now. I mean, recruiters are not stopping; they continue to recruit. I can share with you at Lilly, we're actively hiring for a lot of positions across the organization. And but one of the things that I will encourage you is to figure out what you really want to do. I mean, to have an idea of what you want to do in the long term, and make sure that you have that idea before you even go into an application process. Make sure that you understand the implications and what you don't like about your current job, what you do not want to have on your new opportunity, because you need to be ready to apply. I think 2021 is going to be super interesting year. Um, and you will be, I mean, you will be competing not just with local talent, you will be competing with talent from all over the place. I mean, COVID has opened up the doors for a lot of different talent. Companies, I think, that are now more willing or open to have remote workforce.
Yep.
And that's why you need to be ready. And the reason why, as a recruiter or as a person with experience in recruitment, you need to be ready. You need to be ready because, for example, I can share with you that organizations like ours, there's a lot of interest in some positions, and you don't want to be the last one, or you don't want to miss that opportunity. Have your resume ready, make sure that it is up to date, and go ahead and apply as soon as you can. And another thing that I mean is probably along the lines is make sure that you are active in social media. It is
Mm,
very important nowadays. People like me, I'm looking for you to work at Lilly. And if I cannot find you, I mean, you will never work at Lilly. And what I'm telling you is pretty much build a presence. I mean, if you're very
mm,
passionate about anything, just making sure that is in your profile, because there are people like me that we are like a talent scouts. We're looking for that talent, but all your hard work, all that consistency that you have every day, I mean, that doesn't mean anything if I cannot find you. I mean, and that's the thing. It's like I invite you. Like, make sure that your profile online it is available for anybody to find. I mean, and not just for me, for anybody. I mean, because ideally we want to recruit the best of the best. But I mean, there's a lot of employers. I mean, you don't want to miss an opportunity. that's one of the things that I encourage Latinx talent nowadays, is that sometimes we're always like very proud of what we do. We're super hard workers, and we're waiting for that person like, oh, you're doing a fantastic job. Now you're promoted. And sometimes that's not going to be the case. You need to own your own career. You need to apply, I mean, and check what is internally in your company. Maybe there's an opportunity of promotion.
Mhm.
Have those conversations before you start from scratch. Because when you move from from company to company, you may have a very good reputation in your current with your current employer, but you will need to start again. I mean, and just make sure that you take ownership of your career. That's something that Latinx, not all of them, I don't like to generalize, Patricia, but we
Yeah.
need to fight for ourselves, and not fight. I mean, we just make sure that we do our best for ourselves, because at the end of the day, nobody else is gonna do it. It's
Yeah.
you.
So much great information and tips there, Roberto. Thank you for sharing. I think yes, I know we don't want to generalize, but it is a common thing that we see in our community, right? In terms of
Mhm.
working really hard, but not really advocating for ourselves or asking for what we deserve or putting ourselves out there, right? So I
Yes.
think that there is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable and really advocating and putting yourself out there. You talked about also another question that came up to mine is really narrow down what is it that you want, right? Like what is the type of role? Can you give like maybe two or three pointers on how does a job seeker figure out, you know, I mean, I think when, especially if you've been looking now for a while, depending on, you know, when you started your job search, what tips do you have? You know, sometimes, you know, you're thinking like, all right, I need to just get out there because I need to get employment so I can, you know,
Mhm.
bring in the income and support my family. But why it's so critical to sit down and reflect on what is it that you want? How can people do that?
Yes, I mean, you really need to take, I mean, going back to the
Yeah.
basics. You need to check the job description that you're applying for the role, and you prepare for your interview. The resume or your application is the first path, the first
Hmm.
stage. You need to make sure that you have the basic requirements, all of that. But once you get into the interview process, that works is something that I see, and I'm not talking about Lily. I mean, in general, this in
Right.
general for some of Latinx applicants, the
Hmm.
willingness to do anything to get that job sometimes gets us in trouble. Let me give you an example. When you got an applicant goes with a hiring manager and tell me what you want to do. You're applying for a job, let's say marketing, and like I can do anything. I can do finance. I can do sales. I just want to work here. I mean, and sometimes that energy can be misleading, and that person is just looking to hire somebody in marketing. And by us kind of like showing that energy anywhere, I mean, it seems like we have lack of direction.
Hmm.
That's why it's going back to the basics. I mean, you may be having those opportunities in the future within your future employer, but make sure that you focus on what you're applying, and also make sure that you really read that job description, because if you don't fulfill those basic requirements, most of the times you will never know that you were disqualified, and sometimes you will take that on yourself. It's like oh my goodness, I mean, nobody likes me. Like no, I mean, it's because you don't have, I mean, it's not the company against you, is that you need to pay attention to those little details that they're very, very important. But I mean, be prepared, because
Yeah.
there's going to be competition. I mean, and you need to make sure that you relate that interest to that hiring manager, or that team, that you want to work there, not somewhere else, there.
Yeah, yeah. That's such a great point, porque again, I guess I'm generalizing, but sometimes we can be very passionate, right? And because
Yes.
we're such hard workers, we're like, you know what, we can do whatever, we can get the job done. But I think that's an excellent tip. How are we narrowing down and being specific to the
Mhm.
role and to the company, the organization, as best as we can, so that you are the best candidate, the top candidate for that
Correct.
role, right? And then the second piece, and then we'll open it up to questions. So please have your questions ready to go. Those of you tuning in, you talked about the social media piece, right? Is it LinkedIn? Is it Twitter? And then the other question, the second piece to that is, what are you looking for? Like, are they like subject posting about their subject matter expertise? Are they just active in general? What, as a talent scout, do you should we be job seekers be aware of, right?
Yes, I mean, if you want to be if I mean, if you want them to find you, and you want to kind of like mention, I mean, there's to answer your question, there's not a, I mean, that is a super ambiguous answer, but there's not a perfect profile or not perfect presence. It's more about being active. I think that is the important piece. It's like a workout. You need to work out every day to see the results. If you just start a profile and you just leave it there, you're not going to gain anything. And it is the same concept with social media. I would recommend LinkedIn because most of the active recruiters are looking into LinkedIn. Yes, there's a lot of recruiters, including myself. I'm very active on Facebook, depending on the audience, the type of workforce that you want to attract. But I will recommend you LinkedIn. And there's a lot of different groups with different affinities. I mean, you have diversity inclusion groups. I mean, something that is something that you want to take on your you can take advantage. I mean, I can share with you. I participated in a meeting probably about 3 weeks ago with a software provider, and they share something very, very interesting, that about 60% of all searchers from employers, they are looking for the diversity and inclusion aspect into the role. It's not that they're looking for a software engineer, they're looking at software engineer, and they want to look for those diverse candidates. But of course, a recruiter cannot find that in like, oh yeah, I'm a diverse talent or something like that. You need to get them his idea, and how you can do that by participation, like a join into HACE events, participate on these type of events or other organizations that support these efforts. But you need to be active. I mean, and it doesn't need to be perfect. You just need to start. That's, I think, the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
If you start,
So it's also about showing your personality on the LinkedIn, right? So like there's like professional groups out there. You can comment, you can, share a thought, you can share an article, right? So there's several ways to do that. And then, like you said, it's not about, one thing, but how are you just having activity throughout? Like it may be once, maybe 2-3 times a week, right? Or a couple times a week, I don't know, right? But you got to be active, right? So just
yes.
do it. Awesome. So I know we have time for 1 or 2 questions. So those of you who are tuning in, if you have a question for Roberto, feel free to put them in the comment section, and we'll also we'll share these later as well, so with Roberto and the team. So Diego, thank you for your question on LinkedIn. Are there groups that you would suggest to join or be a part of to meeting more Hispanic professionals? Well, my first response is, well, I shouldn't be answering for Roberto, but I will. HACE, right? You mentioned HACE, but Roberto, also for you, what other organizations?
There are so many with Latinx focused groups. I mean, that depending on your area of interest or expertise will open you. I mean, and you don't need to kind of like go into like the mainstream, like the big ones. I mean, there's so many different personalized. I mean, I just was having a conversation last night with somebody who is based on Norway, who is advocating for Latinos from outside of the continent. And I mean, it's just by being active is when you sometimes also get into the conversation into very small groups that they're very specialized. But I mean, you don't put that like I mean, if you're looking for names, yeah, there's like a lot of different groups, like a Society of Hispanic Engineers. I mean, there's an unlimited, but make sure that if you're going to join, be active, because by being a member doesn't give you anything if you don't participate. It requires participation, and you need to show up to get the best out of it. And that, I mean, that could be any group.
Thank you, Roberto. Diego, I hope that answered your question. As well, if you haven't, please sign up for free at aceonline.org, and we'll send you opportunities throughout the year. And so if we have another question, we probably can answer it right away. And if not, we have 1 minute left. I'm sorry. I have to also keep track of time. So Roberto, my last question to you, and thank you for joining us, is what do you most look forward to for 2021?
I think we lost in some regard the sense of community during this year. We got disconnected because of the pandemic. But I think it's my hope that in 2021 we get into this sense of community, and we evolve and we respect and we get together and realize that in this world we need the help of each other in order to succeed. It's not just yourself. And I think it's going to be a bright future. And just to share something, like we talk about LinkedIn and everything. If you are very serious in having an opportunity at Eli Lilly, connect with me. I will not say no. You have
So
front
find
row.
Roberto on LinkedIn. You have his name on the screen. So reach out to him, connect to him, send him a note. Roberto, thank you again for joining us today. We'll be sending you your Cafecito con HACE mug as a thank you as well to those that have joined us this year.
I'm super accurate.
So you can have your 2 cafecitos at 5 a.m. every day as you usually do. So thank you again. Thank you for those tuning in. We appreciate your engagement. And again, remember, if you have $5, $10 to spare, we're providing grants to college students to help them with their gas bill, their bus pass, their health insurance. We've heard everything in terms of what their needs are currently. So thank you for the consideration. Y gracias a todos. Hasta la próxima. Thank you, Roberto.
Muchas gracias.
Bye-bye.